Hey, what's up guys? Robert here from loamwolf.com. In today's first ride report, we're going to be checking out the brand new Scott Ransom, which now uses their integrated suspension technology, but it's a 6-bar design. Learn all about it and find out how it rides in this first ride report. Let's go. So beside me is the latest generation of the Scott Ransom, their enduro bike that's been in their lineup for quite some time now, and is really their most aggressive bike that you can still pedal up a hill. This features 170mm travel on both ends and a pair of 29-inch wheels as standard, but it can be used with a 27.5-inch wheel in the back thanks to a little flip chip which tailors the geometry to keep it fairly constant between the two, but does offer a slightly shorter chainstay on this shorter wheel mode, just to best work to the smaller wheel out there. This frame has now been updated to use the same sort of design language as the rest of the Scott range, so you find the shock hidden away in the frame thanks to the integrated suspension technology. But given the different needs of an enduro bike, the different packaging constraints that come with the slightly longer travel and the need to use a super long dropper post, as well as the desire to have the most control over the kinematics of the suspension, they opted to use a 6-bar suspension design, the first time that they've moved away from their more Horst Link style suspension on the longer travel bikes. So this offers basically a very high degree of tunability. They're able to manipulate the pivot points to be exactly where they want them to be, and to ultimately obtain the sort of kinematics, the leverage ratio, the pedaling performance, the braking performance that they want just by moving these links a fraction of a millimeter each time. It does use a whole other set of bearings compared to normal. You've got these little sort of tie rods that connect the upper and the lower links that you would typically find on a more kind of Horst Link design. But yeah, in terms of overall added complexity, it's definitely there, but it doesn't seem to be as if it's going to cause too many more issues. It's all very well designed in typical Scott fashion, and yeah, it makes for a really clean execution of this bike given its extra complexity and the different level of tunability that they're able to get. The integrated suspension technology that Scott uses on the new Ransom, as with the rest of their bikes in their full suspension range now, apart from the Gambler, has a number of benefits. The 170mm travel rear end of this sees the shock hidden inside the main frame, away from being exposed to the elements, so it should keep the service intervals longer and the performance better for longer. It also kind of offers some benefits in terms of the overall structural kind of integrity of the frame. They don't have to reinforce the area around the shock so much. It's naturally sort of reinforced, and it offers a kind of stiffer surrounding for the shock, which should yield improved suspension performance. And yeah, it just makes for a super clean and pretty cool looking bike, and I think especially with the new Ransom, they've made a really nice sort of job of the lines on it. It all looks really nice and low slung, and yeah, just offers some really cool integration all around. As with all Scott bikes, you find the twin lock, track lock remote up on the handlebar, letting you remotely change the rear shock settings of this bike to the terrain ahead. So you get 3 different settings: the open descending mode, a traction control mode, and a ramp control mode. So the ramp control closes off air chamber to make the shock more progressive overall, and then the traction mode adds compression damping to this slightly reduced shock volume to improve pedaling performance. But even still, the kinematics on this frame do mean that even when it's open, it still pedals pretty damn well. With the new 6-bar design, Scott's had to change the way that they show the sag on the frame. With the integrated suspension technology, they still make it so that you can easily see the shock sag from the outside, but instead of being on the kind of upper link, it's around the BB and the main pivot down at the bottom. But still makes for a really nice and easy shock setup. And getting into the shock on the underside of the frame is really nice and easy too. It's a pretty clean kind of down tube cover with a little push button that easily pops it off and lets you get into all the controls on the shock to make quick adjustments, and it's not really any more difficult than on any other bike. Inside the main front triangle, you've got room for a huge water bottle, and there's also in the down tube integrated storage solution where you can stick a tube in there. It's got a tire lever and a chain tool, and then on that down tube cover and the protector, there's also a little multi-tool. So you get all the kind of integrated tools and spares that you need, and it's a pretty nicely executed bike all around. Scott's given the Ransom some more kind of descending focused geometry over the existing model, but they've not gone too crazy with it, kind of with the mindset that you do need still some versatility for tighter sections of trail, and it shouldn't just be a kind of out and out downhill bike for just super high speed runs. So the numbers that ended up on this size large are 483mm reach with a 632mm stack. You get 440mm rear end, a 63.9 degree head tube angle in the slack setting, but it does have an adjustable headset cup which you can tune, basically turn the other way around to give a 1.2 degree steeper setting if you wish to have a more sort of agile handling. And the bottom bracket sits at 30mm below the axles. All around kind of modern enduro geometry numbers, especially with that 77.4 degree effective seat tube angle as well. And it's made for a nice handling package all around. In terms of build specs, Scott is offering 4 men's and 1 women's spec as standard, but the lowest 930 model is only available in Europe and not to the North American market. So in North America, you've got a lineup from the 920 through to the 900 RC that I've been testing here, with prices from $6,000 up to $10,000 for this one here. And the Contessa model, the women's model, is also the 910 spec, which comes in slightly cheaper. The 900 RC spec has been really nicely selected to deliver kind of fine mixture between overall performance, giving you all the kind of highest sort of features of performance, but without going into kind of crazy money, crazy lightweight. You still pack a lot of durability with this. So it's got a set of Code Ultimate brakes, a Fox factory suspension package with 38 170mm up front, some nice race face aluminium wheels with their Volt hubs with really nice quick engagement, and then the EXO transmission drivetrain, which has been absolutely faultless. It's finished with Scott's Synchros in-house kind of component package, with the Synchros dropper, which is a super nice and long one, their saddle, and then the integrated bar and stem, the Hickson IC SL, which won't be to everyone's liking, but it certainly seemed to fit well here and delivers that same sort of integrated sort of look that makes for a really nice, clean overall and super futuristic looking package. Now that we've learned all the specs and the details of this new Scott Ransom, let's talk about how it performed when we got it out onto the trails. So good. For this first ride report, we were able to take the Scott Ransom onto the trails of Santa Coloma de Farners near Barcelona in Spain for a day to really put it to the test across a wide variety of pretty damn challenging terrain at times. And I came away from this test incredibly impressed by the capabilities of this bike, and I've had a serious amount of fun putting it to the test. So I'm really excited to take it home to the local trails and put it to the test for the longer term. But for now, the first ride report is going to give me certainly plenty to talk about. On the way up the hill, the kind of geometry is pretty damn dialed, nice central position, really reasonable balance between both wheels. The rear end is kind of in a pretty good sweet spot, I would say, of being long enough to keep plenty of weight on that front wheel for all but the steepest of climbs, and yeah, without kind of really limiting its overall versatility and agility on the way down the hill. And yeah, in terms of, well, being a Scott, being fairly lightweight overall, I think it came in 15.6 kilos, about 35.5 pounds for the size large tested without pedals. And also being a Scot in general, you would expect the climbing performance to be pretty damn good, and that has proved to be the case. The pedaling platform, even without using that remote lockout, is you know, nice and firm. The kinematics have plenty of pedaling support in all gears. It increases slightly throughout the range, so you're kind of always matched with your natural body kind of input to the bike. And really that kind of leads me to the problem where I do not see the point of the track lock system on this bike. Some people in certain areas, and if you're doing a really smooth, really long climb, you may disagree, and it may be something that really benefits your riding. But for me, certainly the ramp control at times was quite useful, but the traction control, the like more locked out setting, just didn't I didn't feel the need for it at pretty much any time. I was quite happy leaving it open and pedaling away because the chassis stays nice and stable, and it just gives you that little bit extra kind of comfort and traction. But yeah, like I say, if you're using the bike slightly differently to how I typically do, then potentially it will be something that's useful to you. But I'd rather, for me, take away the slight extra weight and complexity and leave it as just a shock that you just get on and pedal, because the pedaling platform on this thing is absolutely sufficient for me to be comfortable in its efficiency. But aside from that, certainly that ramp control feature is quite useful, quite interesting, giving you a little bit more of a platform and more support and more progression overall, just to quickly flick it into if you're on a slightly mellower trail where you really need to pump into the bike to work for speed, or a more kind of jumpy trail where you don't necessarily need all of the travel to be used. You just want a slightly more kind of supportive platform and still kind of keep plenty of progression. And yeah, it's definitely a nice system, and being able to flick it so quickly on the fly is really handy, especially if you find real value in the climbing position there. But this is not really a bike that's designed for the way up the hill. It's designed to get you up the hill for sure, and in quite an efficient way, as Scott would intend, but the descending performance is really what Scott's looked to push with this thing, and they've done a pretty damn killer job. The suspension platform overall, I ran it at 30% sag, and it provided just a really nice blend. It's not super plush and yeah, just sort of dead feeling. It doesn't totally erase the trail, but it takes off enough of the sting. It keeps the rear wheel moving freely enough to really give you plenty of traction, but without losing the support that lets you kind of generate speed and feel the terrain below you to feel that traction. It's a really nice blend. I didn't manage to bottom it out harshly at any point during the test, even though I was really trying my hardest. And yeah, overall, it's, in terms of suspension performance, this is one of the highlight bikes of my year so far. Definitely, yeah, kind of pushing the boundaries of performance there for enduro mountain bike overall. Geometry wise, it's pretty damn spot on for a modern enduro bike. Plenty of front end yeah, slackness and capability and stability there without being overly long and unwieldy in tighter sections of trail. It still feels nice and responsive and agile. You can kind of really dart your way side to side on the trail to get the best line and just to ride actively and be as fast as possible. And yeah, I really have zero complaints to make in terms of its descending performance whatsoever. It's still nice and comfortable under braking. It still pedals well, but it wasn't overly harsh through the feet or anything through rougher terrain. Overall, it's just been an absolute pleasure to use, really. I gave these race face wheels an absolute hammering, and they took it all in their stride and gave me no problems. As with the rest of the build kit, there was really nothing to complain about. Some people may not love that one-piece integrated bar and stem combo, but I found the geometry of it to be pretty comfortable for my hands, and yeah, it really just didn't give me anything to complain about when I was on this bike. And I'm really impressed overall by the performance that Scott's managed to deliver with the new Ransom. I hope you guys have enjoyed checking out this first ride report. Do stay tuned for the long-term review, where I'll be able to really confirm my findings on more familiar terrain and see how the durability stacks up in the longer term. But for now, give us a like if you have, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the brand new Scott Ransom, and subscribe to the channel to see more awesome content and awesome bikes like this. Thanks for watching, catch you out on the trails.